Hello, and welcome back to the Four Blues, One Red podcast. Yesterday, we talked on the subject of city and county elections. Today, we will be continuing our discussion on district and state elections, but also about a few controversies that happened between and while at those elections. I'm your red host, Colin Sarton, along with my blue hosts.
I'm KD.
I'm Adrian Owens.
I'm Silas.
Ethan.
All right, let's get right into it. So, as we all know, yesterday was the districts and state elections. However, there was another important civic activity occurring on the Boise State campus, which is the ice cream protests.
Oh yeah. And the drinks.
And the drinks and the...
There's another non-committal group actually campaigning to not mess with either of them and just campaign directly for sidewalks.
So an anti-protest.
Yeah,
right.
It was a counter-protest, I guess.
All right, that's a real interesting...
Yeah, it was a lot of civil disobedience going on. And actually, as I was walking to interview Isaiah, a woman came up asking what they were protesting about because they were doing such a good job protesting. She thought it was a real protest.
Like someone.
That's
like,
impressive.
Yeah,
like
someone walked across the street to me and Isaiah and asked if that was a real protest and what they were protesting about.
Like a full-time resident of UCA?
I'm not sure.
All right.
That's impressive, though.
Yeah,
They're doing a great job over there.
Yeah. And speaking of the ice cream protests, we wanted to go ahead and put an interview in here from Jalen O'Neill.
Well, my name is Jalen O'Neill. I'm a part of Carville County, Gordon City. I'm a nationalist. I stand for one thing only, and that's having our voices heard and we live in a democracy. Like, we should have our voices heard because that's what democracy is.
So, where did the idea for this protest, who organized this protest?
It was like a collective group because at first it was like people wanted soda to fix the doors and some people wanted ice cream to fix the sidewalks faster. And then they brought the soda machines back and they told us that they were going to get rid of the soda machines on some days and have the soda machines on other days without telling us without giving us a choice of when those days are. And so that's why we were protesting, because I feel like if they're going to take something from us, we should at least have a voice or a say in when that gets taken away from us and when we can have that.
How effective do you think these forms of protest can be?
If they are done correctly, they could change the world. Like right now, if we could change this, we could change anything. If we could get people to change their mind, we could do anything.
Do you hold Pablo responsible for these protests, as he's the governor and he instituted the state of emergency? Or do you think this was more of a necessity given the situation that Pablo could not have avoided?
I feel like it wasn't Pablo himself, but a collective group. And I say that because it's not just Pablo running office. He may be the top dog, but it's just like the president. He has to go through his legislative, and he may be the top dog, like the person who gets elected, but he's not making those decisions all by himself. And so we have to change multiple people's minds, or at least a majority of people's minds, to get our voices heard. And I feel like to put the blame on Pablo isn't the right thing to do. We put the blame on the entire wing as a whole, because a majority of them had to agree to do this without us.
And I'll just have one last question for you. What would you say to people who want to either join these protests or support the cause but don't know how?
Honestly, if you want to join, just don't be afraid. Like, I may be like an introvert, but I'm out there screaming. I'm about to lose my voice. And I think, like, just personally, like, just do it, you know?
All right. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
All right, so I wanted to ask you guys, what are your opinions on this protest? All right, do you think it's just, or do you think they should cut our governors and our elected officials some slack when it comes to funding projects like this?
I think they're doing the right thing with the protest. They may go a little overboard when they try breaching into Irby, but they're exercising their First Amendment right, and I think that's what the right means, is that you can protest and give speeches however you feel. And if they're displeased with what's happening with the ice cream and the soda, then they should be able to demonstrate that.
Yeah, I'm with Silas here. I mean, I think they're doing what they were supposed to do, but, I mean, being invasive and going into buildings where people are working or doing stuff and disrupting, our time, other people's time. They just got to be more respectful if they want people to get on their side.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. They couldn't say it no much better.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the building whenever they breached, and like I said, you can probably hear them on our last episode. All right, so now that we have the protests out of the way, let's move on to the big topic that everybody's talking about, elections. All right, so especially for the nationalists, what were you guys' thoughts on the results? Were the speeches good enough, or do you think that maybe there was some party bias?
There's definitely a county bias within each county, but there was a couple of speeches where they definitely took some creative liberties, and instead of addressing problems, they tried to win the audience over with their personality. I think it was Cooper from Sheets County. Mm-hmm. He went up, and it looked like he had stage fright, and he stopped, and he wouldn't go. He just wouldn't, start a speech. But I ended up interviewing him, and he said that the reason that happened isn't because he was nervous. It was because he wanted to do a Trump voice for his speech, and he forgot how to do it.
Okay.
So he got nervous and decided to sit down until they got him back up there, and he just gave the speech with his own voice, and it worked well enough that he advanced to the runoffs.
I thought he was just scared to speak in front of everyone. That's why I kind of felt bad.
Another one that won mine for sure. I think his name was Clay. I can't remember who he was. Yeah. Little bro that sat down on the stage. I loved his speech. I ain't gonna lie.
Clayton Nall.
Yeah, Clay.
I also interviewed him after and talked to him. He definitely gave a pretty brave speech. It takes a lot
to open up like that and let your people know. Yeah, I love it. He got my vote for sure.
It definitely gave you some respect. I'm in the same county as he is. He's a great kid, and anyone who isn't unsure about who to vote for, either Land Commissioner or Boys Nation, should definitely consider Clayton.
Facts.
Yeah, out of our 67 different contestants, I mean, we had great turnout. They all did really well.
Clay for governor.
Yeah, for the Federalist one, it was interesting. We had a lot of great speeches for governor as the positions kept rising, like the justices of the peace, and then to the Secretary of State, and then to like the AG and things like that. It seemed like the speeches only got better. However, it was a very, very slow start with the first few positions of the justices of the peace, because
the Supreme Court.
Yeah, 3 of our justices of the peace ran unopposed, totally just unopposed.
Like not even like
didn't have an opponent at all.
Really?
Not an opponent at all. So we then had 2 justices of the peace, which did have an opponent, and
was that just for a lack of volunteers, or is just not a popular position?
I think it just may have not been a popular position, but I've noticed this concerning trend in the Federalist Party. Like I said in the last episode, the Federalists seem to be lacking a bit in political...
Like motivation?
Yeah, political motivation. But as I said, when we kept rising up and we got to like Land Commissioner and things like that, the speeches were like golden, I swear.
I think that might be partly because people who are more committed and trying to not be more impressive but be more professional were going for those higher spots, so they felt that they needed to give a speech that illustrated that. All
right, now I wanted to present an interview of Isaiah, a nationalist governor candidate taken by the same person, Silas, after the nationalist party.
This is before when I was out interviewing the protesters. I saw him and I knew he was running for governor, so I decided to sit him down and just kind of pick his brain over his speech writing process, and I think it was a very interesting interview.
Isaiah, you gave a very thought-provoking speech earlier. How many? I saw you test running that speech during breakfast. What kind of tips did you get on your speech?
So mainly, make sure that you're not too serious, but also make sure that you do have a point and something that you want to work for. Appeal to the delegates, and make sure that your plan is actually well thought out, that you did your research, and that you know that it's that you are capable of making this change. You don't want to do something like far outstretched and say stuff about things that you can't even do in that power.
What is your opinion like on the election process? Because there have been some buzz about some counties having 10-second speeches and those candidates beating those with full length speeches. What's your perspective?
I actually didn't know about that. I think that that's a limitation of their ability to express themselves and why they're good advocates. And I feel like that supports a system where the popular people will just automatically get those positions instead of people that actually want change and will have time to actually express what they want to do.
I want to make it clear that I am not accusing Boise State of elitism and political favoring, but it is strange to see full 1 minute speeches lose to a 5-second joke.
Yeah. And I think that just comes from the maturity of having a bunch of teens in one place. If every county does it different, then that's not a universal voting system, and I don't think that's democratic. And maybe they just don't communicate or they have their own set rules, but this affects everybody, and this affects their nominees for the upcoming elections where you do multiple counties. So some people like me would have had a lot more time to practice and talk to my counselors and write speeches, while other people didn't get to experience that if they only had such a limited time.
And those who aren't in Sanders County won't know about this, but at the first leadership talk, you brought up a very compelling argument about stereotypes. And you're from Harrison. You brought up the point that Harrison isn't what it used to be, and people don't acknowledge that. Do you think there's any accurate situation with that within Boise State, or do you think that's just a real world system that we can't really simulate here?
I think it's definitely a topic you can bring into Boise State whenever you're talking about your plans as a delegate for something. I've already had a bunch of kids avoid me or stop talking to me whenever I told them I was from Harrison, or whenever it was brought up. I had people fear me at first until somebody else that knew me would step in and talk to them.
But and tell them you're not the bigoted racist.
Yeah, but it's not just Harrison that has a stereotype. If you meet people from other states, people think of Arkansas like that too.
Yeah, I think rednecks, podunk.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to fight. My whole campaign was, I know I come from these backgrounds of different things. I lived in a trailer, my dad's handicapped, and my mom works full-time. These are things that shouldn't define who I am. It should just be my backstory, and I think people should look past the stereotypes. People are still afraid to go to Harrison, and you're rarely ever going to actually see a problem there.
But that's about all the time I have. I implore anybody listening to reach out to Isaiah. He's a phenomenal speaker, and he has a good head on his shoulders. Thank you for your time, Isaiah.
Thank you.
All right, so after that interview, let me ask you guys. This is not exactly a popular topic, but have you guys noticed any, not exactly bias, but more, I realize that bias here is almost an impossibility, because we do have to give speeches and everything, but I wanted to know, have you noticed any shorter speeches, 30-second long ones that are, they don't say much, that have beaten out any professionally given, speeches that people really worked on?
Well, I mean, no matter how hard you work on a speech, if you can't execute it, you can have 10-minute speech, and if you're stumbling the whole time, it's going to sound worse than the little 30-second speech where they just were flawless.
Yeah.
So it depends on that. Your personality outside of your speech and who you're friends with. It's just a big pot. You got to put everything in.
And also, I think it helps when you're able to connect to your audience in a kind of a less professional, more of a personal way. Like one of the speeches ending with a Kanye quote.
Oh, God. That won some people over.
And actually, just now at the runoffs, Uzi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's an Uzi quote.
Yeah.
Uzi
He stand
quote.
on his money, now he's 6'6".
All right.
But he was 5'7", so now he's 6'9". Nice.
Interesting.
Man, shame Uzi now? Oh my gosh, the hype is crazy.
All right, so now we're done with elections. We have a football tournament with the championship going on in about roughly maybe another hour or so. So who do y'all think is gonna win?
Cotton taking it off.
Rooks. I'm coaching the Rooks team. We're not losing.
I'm a player of the Cotton.
We're not losing.
GG's. Cotton on top.
Cotton's got nothing on the Rooks.
Cotton on top.
Well, with that being said, we'll find out later on the next episode after we interview some of the players after the game.
Say, well, good luck to Coach Hot Wheels and KD.
See y'all.
All right.
Our podcast music was provided by thepodcasthost.com and Alitu, the podcast maker. Find your own free podcast music over at thepodcasthost.com/